Welcome to the Take 92 podcast. My name is Sammy Warm Hands. I am your host, and today I've got my old friend Robert Rios from Irican Productions up in Portland, Oregon. If you're an old school fan of mine, you would have seen us playing shows together back in 02, 03, from Eugene to Portland and in between. We're going to dive into that, but also talk about his recording studio in Portland, how you can make your band sound great, and then we're going to premiere a brand new track from his band, Sorry Not Sorry.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, dude.
How's it going?
Good.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Nice, man. Well, it's been a while besides those few minutes I saw you at Good Riddance, so.
Yeah. So just to fill everybody in, we met in, I think, 2002. We were both in our high school bands. I was in EPD, you were in 36 Drive. And we played this outdoor, like, Battle of the Bands thing in Wilsonville, Oregon. I have not been there since.
I think to get gas, that's about it.
Yeah. It's interesting because you and I mean, we played a few shows at the time. I think we played the Paris Theater and up in Portland, and then down here, I had thrown some shows at my high school. I think you guys played one or two of those. And then we didn't see each other for like a long time.
Almost a decade. Or more.
Almost two, yeah. And then
yeah, you're right.
We fucking actually had kind of similar trajectories when we met up again. It was like, oh, no shit, like we're both in a million projects and our producers and, you know, this, that, and the other.
I thought that was so funny when I stumbled upon you online. I was like, holy shit, like, yeah, kindred spirits, I guess.
I can't even remember exactly when that happened, but it was like you followed me or something. I was like, oh shit, I haven't seen that name in years. And then we ended up just calling each other and talking for a while.
Yeah, and then you also sent me a picture of a 36 Drive CD.
Yeah, I still got it.
And then I sent you a picture of your EPD CD that I had.
Yeah.
So of course, it's still right on my shelf, so.
That's so funny, man.
That's crazy. Yeah, I still got the trophy from that Battle of the Bands thing on my shelf upstairs, actually.
That's funny.
It's the only Battle of the Bands I've ever won in my life.
Well, you beat me, apparently. I don't even remember.
Yeah, it was a fun show.
That's funny. You won a Battle of the Bands. I got kicked off a Battle of the Bands.
Oh, shit. I got thrown out of the Roseland Exposure Battle of the Bands.
Really?
When I was in high school, because I got on stage during my friend's band Willard was playing.
Yeah.
And I got on stage and I didn't realize how ridiculous the Roseland security was, and I immediately just got grabbed and thrown down the back staircase, just like, and they ripped my shirt and threw me out in the street, and I had like an all-access pass. I'm like, I'm in one of the bands. And they're like, but you already played, you're done.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
So typically on the show, we do kind of a deep dive, through back catalog and work all the way up till present day. Are you down?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good to me. You'll probably remind me of shit I've done that I forgot about.
Yeah. So was 36 Drive your first band?
Kind of. I grew up, and me and my bass player for 36 Drive had been best friends since we were like 5.
Yeah.
And so me and him had been in like school bands together, and we started playing with one of my friends, Max, when we were like in junior high, who played drums for a little bit. And I think we called ourselves Red Leader or something like that. And then
nice.
That kind of like turned into, we played with a couple different people and then found Eric Lamb, and then that turned into 36 Drive. So, yeah.
Cool. So what age are you that's happening?
Oh, like 12.
Nice.
13 maybe. So, and then I think like 14, 15 is when 36 Drive like really took off, and we did a bunch of stuff. So
when I last saw you, you're opening a show for one of my all-time favorites, Good Riddance, right?
Yeah, one of my all-time favorites too. That was incredible.
And you guys have been on, when I say you guys, I mean Ground Score, the band you're currently playing, one of the bands you're currently playing with.
Currently not anymore.
Okay.
I actually just quit in December. So.
Okay. But more recently, I've seen you on a lot of great bills. Now, back then, who was somebody notable? Like, what was the exciting, like, holy shit, like, this is really happening kind of show that you might have had back in the early days?
Just like the same thing. I remember going to see Good Riddance and like Dropkick Murphys and being like, oh my God, like this is incredible, and like to be able to like be on that stage now, to be the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. We also got to open for Melancholy, which was the same thing.
Yeah.
They were one of the bands, like, growing up, I was front row freaking out, and then I got to be opening years later, so it's pretty incredible.
I really wanted to come up for that show, man. Their last 2 albums are so good.
Melancholy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, I know. Oh, my God, every time I hear True Brew, I cry. I can't not. It's just impossible. It's like the resonating frequency of, like, my soul or something.
Yeah, seriously. Like, it's weird when you want your artist to grow and change a little bit, but you want them to also stay who they are, you know, and the tenets that you loved when you first heard them, right? And
it's the fine line you got to walk.
Yeah, man, and they're one of those great bands that just somehow dug deeper and got more refined, and the tone gets better, and just like every little thing, but they never really departed from that original vibe.
Yeah, they fill that hole that they always have, kind of, and like, but I don't know. I think they have progressed, like, sonically and kind of just their songwriting, but it fills that same warm spot that you felt years ago, you know?
Yeah, man. I still remember hearing No Cigar on a Punkorama when I was a kid and just being like, who is this? I'm buying this right now.
It's funny as my mom even can pick out Melancholy when she's hanging out with me. She's like, oh, this is Melancholy, right? She's like, he's the guy who sounds like he's got marbles in his mouth. And it's funny that she even remembers their name and, like, what they sound like because they're so unique, and the way he puts his sentences together and just the sound of his vocals. I don't know.
It's funny that you say that because actually my mom has their last 2 records, and over the last several years has gotten into a lot of my favorite bands, you know.
That's awesome.
I remember some years back, this might have been like 10 years ago or something, and she'd be like telling me about the new Offspring and the new Rise Against. She's like, have you got these? You know, I'm like, I'm not really, I don't know, they're not doing my favorite stuff nowadays. You know, she's like, oh, you got to give it a chance. It's so, I'm like, what happened here? Like,
that's so funny.
You're telling me to listen to the bands you used to tell me to turn off, you know?
That's really funny. Your mom's going the what's the matter with parents today route, I guess? So,
yeah, for real, man. Like, actually, the last time I did see Rise Against, it was because she wanted people to go with her.
That's awesome.
I was like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, road trip, let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. So, at what point, I mean, obviously, you and I, we come to bands as generally the songwriters, and you know, there's always like one dude who winds up kind of by default taking on that role, right? And and you're kind of the one who ends up pushing things forward. Now, when does that bleed over into production for you?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I've kind of always been the one that's like kind of spearheaded everything and kind of been the one pushing the whole project forward. I think that did lead me into production because when I was younger, you know, I didn't have any musical production knowledge or audio engineering knowledge, but I wanted to do so much, and I realized how much I was dependent on so many other people.
Yeah.
And so that's why I decided, like, first I went to school for business, and then I realized that had absolutely nothing to do with music. And so I quickly changed my course to audio engineering, and I got into Expression College for Digital Arts, which is an audio engineering school in the Bay Area.
Nice.
And I just realized that, like, if I was actually going to get anywhere with my music, because being a musician is just so hard, I was going to have to learn the production side of it. It was just the most logical next step, because as pushing my music, pushing the band, you end up requiring so many people and having to pay so many people to do so many things. So I figured I needed to be that next person. I needed to cut out more of the middlemen, because it's like, it's impossible to be a musician. It's also impossible to be a producer and engineer, but it makes being a musician easier.
Oh, yeah.
Then it adds a whole nother level of fucking stairs to climb, you know?
Well, you hit it right on the money when you said there's more people to pay, because when you're DIY, I mean, that is everything. You are really beholden to whatever the constraints of your budget may be. And so I kind of fell into this as well, just as, you know, you pay somebody to record your band, maybe you pay somebody to do your album cover, or, you know, pay somebody to do your music video. whatever it is, your flyer, and you start to watch them and see what they did with your stuff. And for me, I never went to proper school for it and learned. It was more just a matter of like, I would see what somebody did, and then maybe the next time I'm more collaborative and we're working together. And then we do that a couple times, and I'm like, you know what? I think I just want to give this a try. Maybe I got this, you know. And you're trying to kind of cut out all those extra money holes that you're just wasting stuff that could have gone to merch or tour or something, you know.
It's just like, I feel like being a musician is like it's like the black hole of finding out what you have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it never ends.
Like, you just realize like there's always something to do. There's always something that, you know what I mean? So that's why you want to educate yourself so you can do as much of that, or else you will go broke doing this.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, now we're social media managers, and we're we're PR agents. I mean, we're
oh my god,
we're everything.
So many hats, so many things. I don't know. There's so much of like that putting yourself out there aspect that I have a hard time with, because I'm kind of a purist when it comes to like the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the same time, I have to force myself to do elements of that, or I will get nowhere, because getting exposure is just almost impossible. You know, so unless you're doing it yourself. So
yeah, fully. I mean, it's really kind of a matter of like, how much can I take on before I
lose my mind,
before I can no longer like write the fucking songs, you know?
I don't know. I'm a minimalist. I don't know. I try to be like, I don't post shit all the fucking time. I try to like, when I do put shit out, I try to put my best foot forward, but I'm not as constant as like everyone. It's about finding like a happy medium to where I feel like I present myself in a way that I'm not annoying myself or anyone else, but then also putting myself out there to give myself a fair chance. And that, I don't know, I'm kind of a private person for the most part, so that's hard for me to do sometimes.
Yeah. I remember some years ago, I was really, much like now, burned out on social media, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to only post when I've got a tour coming up or a single coming out or something like that. I did that for a while, and then I noticed just like such a diminished return on those posts, and it was like, God damn it, they want you to be part of the conversation. They want you to be commenting on their shit and to be, you know, I realized like I just have to fucking live my life on here to some extent if I'm going to have the level of interaction that I need. It's still not enough. It's never enough, because we're the little guys, you know, and they do everything to throttle your reach and all that. But I mean, at some point I just kind of had to give in and play along to be heard.
It's hard to jump in. I mean, it's like we grow up and we develop our personality just in dealing with people. But dealing with this whole social media thing, it's like you almost have to develop your own personality in that realm and how you go about doing it. And it's a little different than how you present yourself in public. And so I think it's been hard for me to learn what is my online personality. I'm not quite as boisterous or as posting as everyone else, but I do need to figure out something. So it's hard to cultivate, how do I put myself out there but not be embarrassed about what I'm doing, you know, or feel like I'm over putting myself out there. So that's been really hard for me. I'm learning to do that still. So. Yeah.
It's funny because like the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, like most of my following knows me as a rapper more than a punk singer these days. And yet I don't have time to be cranking out music videos and all this other proper stuff. And so I feel like the last 6 months, the most music you get out of me is like, I'll just sit down with an acoustic and like play a cover or something. And I was just like looking at my feed the other day going like, damn, like people who've been following me for rap are like starved for content right now. Cause like all I'm posting are these quick little acoustic videos.
Yeah. I know my entire fan base is super starved for content because my life's just been nuts the last couple of years. So I'm about to release a full-length Faith the Saints record, a Faith the Saints EP, a second Faith the Saints EP, a Faith the Saints live record with Second Best, and Sorry Not Sorry's debut record.
Awesome.
So I'm about to release 5 releases this year, and I've been working hardcore on them all for the last several years, but like the way things time out, especially being a musician, and then all that touring I did with Ground Score, because we had so much opportunity that we kind of had to run with it. Like, I mean, your plans to do any of this are thrown out the window. You're at the whim of the universe for the most part. So the fact that these are all finally fucking coming out is amazing, you know? So
it's funny, like, man. Like, people will tell me in past years, they'll be like, man, you put out so much music. Like, how do you do this? Like, I can hardly keep up with the amount of content you put out. Like, how do you crank them out so fast? I'm like, so fast? This one took 3 years. That one took 2. This one took 5. You know, like, it's not like, I just cranked this out over the summer. This is like a culmination of years worth of work. It's like when an actor has 2 movies come out in the same month or something. They're like, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, that's not how we made them.
Yeah, it's like it took us like fucking 5 years to make them. So I know the Faith of Saints records, like, we kind of went on hiatus. We kind of like stopped being a band in the process of recording that, but we ended up wanting to finish the record, so we kept doing it. So getting everyone in was a disaster. It took 4 years to finish tracking the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad it's done. I think part of my soul just, like, turned over with the release or with finishing that, because it was just so much weighing on that and finishing that. So many years of fucking work. So,
dude, I know what you mean, man. I played bass in a band from like 2009 to 2012, and we recorded an album. First of all, we started it 3 different times. We finally got it right. We laid down all of our drum and bass tracks in September 2011, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go on tour for a couple months. You know, when I come back, we can mix this shit, put it out, right? So that was 2011, and we just got the masters back for this in June, this month.
Time is relative.
Yeah,
whatever.
In 2012, I remember saying, because they were like still charging forward, I was like, no. I was like, you don't get me until you finish your parts on the record. And so we have not played a show in 8 years because I was like, no, like, just fucking finish this, please. And now it's done, and it's like, well, no one's playing shows anywhere ever. So I guess now we have this, and it feels good to have it, but we're just gonna keep it, like, it's still hiding.
What's happening with Saints, because like we haven't really been much of a band anyways. We can't be much of a band even if we could do shows, because like my bass player's got 3 kids and is married, and so, but we want to release all this music, but we're like, all right, here's all of our music, and maybe we'll play a show when the world opens up. But besides that, I don't know.
Yeah, you got to make some like animated videos and like come with some other kinds of content where you don't have to get everyone in a room, you know?
More shit to pay for, though.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. Like, Dead Fucking Serious dropped our record last year, and right as we're booking the tour, my drummer is like, so I have news. It turns out I'm having a baby. And I'm like, oh my God. So we shortened the tour, and then we had to go on hiatus, you know? And now it's like, all right, we got the anniversary of the record's coming up. We still can't get in a room. I have nothing to give people. And I was like, oh shit, we had some B-sides. I'm going to put out the B-sides just so we have like something to give people. Cause it's like more than just here's a little post about the thing we dropped. It's like, no, I love this fucking thing. We put so much time into it. I want you to hear it. We need to make more of a thing than, I don't know. It's hard.
It is hard. I was reading, I can't remember where, someone did an interview with Ian Mackay from Minor Threat.
Yeah.
And he said, they're like, oh, what are your favorite releases for Minor Threat or whatever? And he was like, the ones that actually came out.
Yeah.
Doing this is like, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know the life factors that are coming to effect. I mean, it takes so much to do all this, and there's so many moving parts. I mean, the time of release is unknown for world factors. And now with this COVID thing, I mean, it's like, that's really killed my business, because it's no artists really have any security in what they're doing. So nobody's really recording, because everyone's had this big question mark on what's happening. And it's just, if there's ever a situation that's going to happen to your release. Yeah,
and like there's a good friend of mine, I was producing a record for him, and also, because this is the age that we're at, he had a baby, and so his record went on hold, and now he's hitting me up going like, hey, so obviously we can't get together, but I've been recording the other songs at home. Would you want to mix it? So like now my production jobs are just turning into mix jobs, you know?
Mm-hmm. I know. That's what I'm trying to get people to be like, hey, anything you're working on, send me your mixes. So
yeah.
I haven't had anybody sending me much. I did get a band, a Heartful Snakes, who I've done their record before. They did call me and say that they're tracking their record and they are going to send it to me to mix. So I'm
nice.
stoked for that. So I'm hoping that I can start getting clients rolling in, like actually doing that.
So what was the first point that you actually started applying those skills to someone other than your own band? Like who was the first other artist that you produced for or mixed for or anything like that? When did this start for you?
Well, in school, I worked with a ton of bands. So it wasn't until I went to school I really started working with other bands, because I'd always just done kind of work with my own band. Actually, I had my own like shitty, those zip drive discs?
Yeah.
Remember for those like big fat ones?
Yeah.
I used to have a digital recorder that recorded onto those, but I could never get it to work, and I just kind of was like, fuck it. And I never did anything with it. And so it really wasn't until school I started working with other bands. And so then I worked with, countless bands in school. Like 100 or whatever.
And that's in what? Berkeley, Oakland? Where are you at?
It's Emeryville, technically. So
okay.
It's right between Berkeley and Oakland.
Okay.
It's like right where the Bay Bridge connects to the East Bay.
Yeah.
So I started working with a lot of bands there, countless bands, because as part of your lab, you just have bands from all over the area signing up to work for different lab shifts that you're just recording. So I recorded countless bands during then. But when I got out, you may know this band. I've always been friends with Second Best from Portland. And when I was moving back to Portland, I heard that Johnny from Second Best, their bass player, was looking for a place to live. And I love Second Best. They're one of my favorite bands. And so I hit Johnny up, and he wanted to move into a place that we could record. And I was like, well, I'm a producer and engineer. I just got my degree, and I want someone to move in with that can have like a band house and record bands. So I moved in with Johnny, and then my friend Joe was a video producer.
Nice.
He moved in with us, and that's how we originally started Irican Productions, in this small northeast house in Portland with Johnny from Second Best and Joe Kirkland as my video producer. I started with recording all of Second Best stuff because they were like one of the best bands I'd ever heard, but all the recordings sounded pretty bad. They just recorded themselves, and they didn't know anything about recording music. So I kind of like listened to all their shit and loved them. And then since I moved in with Johnny, I kind of like took them under my wing and like showed them how to record, how to properly capture things, how to properly EQ, mix, compress. And that was good for me because I just gotten done with school. So it was like I learned how to do it. Now I teach someone how to do it.
Yeah.
So it was like they say in like medicine, it's like you learn it, you do it, and then you teach someone to do it.
Yeah.
So it was like applying the same thing to like audio. And so then I did like the first two Second Best, or the first well-recorded Second Best records.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was just getting all the bands we met and played with. I was usually getting them to come in and do some kind of release with me. So, but mainly it started with Second Best, and yeah, they're my guinea pigs at the start.
We all have our guinea pigs. Actually, just those words remind me of the first band I recorded here at Take 92. It was in 2005. And some ex-bandmates of mine had their own project, and they were going to be my first for hire. I had made some of my own stuff, but I remember going like, yeah, I'm really excited for the session this weekend. Like, this is my first time recording a full drum kit by myself. And they just looked at me like, what did you just say? I'm like, bitch, you know how many records I've worked on? Shut up. Like, I'm just saying, like, this my first time solo. I'm excited.
Yeah. When it's all just you and your movement, so yeah.
Let me ask you this. I find it really interesting that you say you had this influx of bands that you could work with when you were there, because I've known multiple people who went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Science in Arizona, and they took the courses. They have like a project, and that's it. They don't have hands-on experience. Like a lot of those people will leave there and then go have to find an internship or something like that because they don't have the practical experience. They just learned it all on paper. Like, what was it about that particular school that drew you to it? Because I haven't heard of anybody having so much hands-on experience. I mean, that's like some Full Sail shit.
Yeah, well, it is. It's actually comparable to Full Sail. At the time, I think it's different now, but at the time, Full Sail and Expression were the only two accredited audio engineering colleges in the country.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing as Full Sail. Majority of our teachers all came from Full Sail because Full Sail was the first school to do that.
Yeah.
So all the ones who wanted to be on the West Coast came and taught there. So there was a lot of influx from that, but it's because we had giant studios. We had rooms designed by John Stork. So, I mean, we had like multi-million-dollar rooms. And so we would have our labs. So we'd have our daily lab, which would be like a 3-hour lecture. And then after our lecture, we would have a 3-hour lab, which would be assigned in these different rooms. They had like 3 different rooms with an SSL console,
nice.
With an MTR, so 2-inch tape, with like their own little small live room that also doubled as like a Foley pit for the video guys.
Yeah.
And then there was a couple large studios. There was an Octagon, which is one live room with 8 different control rooms. So you could do 8 different mixes of the same tracking. There was the 9K, which was like our $3 million room, like the really big one with the SSL 9K board in it. And I recorded the Faith of Saints EP in that room, actually.
Oh, nice.
So it was a lecture-based. And yeah, we had to learn like the fundamentals of these. A lot of this gear I learned on, I'll never use. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's just like such big boards that I mean, unless I was working in someone else's big studio, I mean, I'm never going to get on those again. But you know, the fundamentals are the same. But in those rooms, doing the lecture and then immediately into the lab was helpful. And then you just had an influx of bands signing up from the Bay Area to come in. So it was constant hands-on, constantly different bands, constantly different styles. And also, we were in all these different rooms. I was really lucky. So I went from having no recording experience to getting out of school and having a ton of recording experience.
Yeah.
And I wish they would have had better placement, but there's really no placement for this because, I mean, what we do is there's not a lot of people doing this or who can do it well. And I don't know, there was no placement from the college, but I felt like I got a really good education and I learned a lot. I had a lot of hands-on experience that I normally would not have had. So.
Yeah. I remember when I started doing this, you know, I was very much just learning as I went, but quickly found that there were a lot of bands in need of like a good low budget recording, you know, same stuff that I had been looking for just 2 years prior or something, you know. I wonder, was that a similar trajectory for you? Like once you started doing it and you put out those, you said they're called Second Best?
Yeah, Second
Yeah,
Best.
so when you put out those Second Best records, what year was that?
When I graduated from college, I was putting out Faith of Saints' first EP, Sweet Sacrilege, and as I was finishing the mixes, I was living with Second Best and recording with them. So it was like 2008 into 2009, 2010.
Okay. And so around this time, I mean, how long does it take before other bands you're playing with going like, who made your shit? Like, how can I?
Pretty quickly, I started recording a lot of bands right when I got out of college. I was new to the city. I met so many people. I was playing so many shows. So I was just telling everybody, hey, hit me up. I'll record you for free or I think I was doing $50 a day at this point or something, or free for anybody I like knew or liked. So I was not making any money for like the first 6 years. Like, I mean, or maybe 2 to 3 years was just like, I did so much shit for free. People would bounce checks with me all the fucking time. It was usually $50 a day, but I just wanted as much experience. And I was working as a dishwasher at the Tin Shed and moved up to bartender. So I had a little like income just to pay my bills so I could do it for like nothing. But then as I got good at it and I started getting better, I started charging a little bit more. But the problem is once you start charging more or wanting people to like actually recognize you for what you do, you immediately get a drop off in clientele. Yeah. Because people want everything for free. So as soon as I started charging, even though I knew it was fucking worth it, I immediately started losing business. Yeah. And it's been a battle since then, just to basically convince people that they want to pay me what I'm worth to record. And I don't charge much at all. Yeah. But it's amazing how everyone wants to record with you when it's free or nothing or $50 a day. Yeah. But as soon as you want them to respect you as like it's your job, then people get weird because people more often want to rub shoulders with famous people. So if they're going to spend money on shit, they want a name attached to it. They want some famous person who recorded there or some producer or whatever. And I don't really have that. So it's hard to
Well, that
create
and
that.
and also we live in a time where this stuff is very accessible, and so yours comes with experience and education, right? But a lot of times, like we were saying, we started doing this shit ourselves because, God, it costs so much to have all these services done. So, I mean, there's always going to be a component of that, like when you're a DIY artist or band, that you are really at the mercy of that budget. And so I had the same sort of experience. And, you know, after 2 or 3 years of doing it really cheap, really often, I had realized, like, wow, last year was the first year I didn't put out an album of my own. Like, this is consuming a lot of my time and not giving me a lot of reward. Yeah. And so
Totally
through
know
that process, you're honing your skill, you're getting better. And then there's a certain moment, at least for me, where I was like, okay, so I closed down like the website I had. I was like, I am not a hired gun anymore. And then I would work with bands that I knew and really liked, and I would charge a little bit more. But I wasn't like, okay, I'm just going to do every cheap gig that comes through, because I can't keep up with all this stuff that I'm not even invested in.
Oh, it's too much. It's too many moving parts, and then you'll burn yourself out doing something you're not enjoying working on at all.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, it will take away from your music that you're wanting to do, and that's the reason we got into this in the first place.
It's tricky because I realized at some point more recently in recent years, I was like, man, if I had been smart, because at that point I'm younger, I'm more out there and involved in the scene all the time outwardly, and I had built up a clientele. I was like, if at that point I had really done it smart, I probably could have quit my job and taken more of those jobs that I didn't want, but then had not a 40-hour work week attached to it, right? And then like, I bet I could have made that work. And I didn't see it at the time because I was just like, man, this is taking up every bit of free time I have, and I'm getting paid like nothing. This sucks. And now it's like, okay, I'm much, much better at it, but I'm the old guy at the punk shows. Like, no, I don't know anybody. I'm, you know, like, it would be way too hard to try to build that from the ground up. Now it's like I felt like I sort of I had it and was like, fuck this. I'm gonna focus on the songwriting, and I kind of missed the window a little bit.
But ultimately, the quality of the music and the songs is ultimately what people are enjoying. So for me, I honestly feel like, I mean, and like all the loyal punks and scenesters or whatever are going to fucking hate me for this, but like the scene's kind of like, it's just like a bullshit fashion representation of what's actually happening in the content. Yeah. So I have a hard time paying a lot of respect to the scene when I think it kind of eats music alive. So I'm a little bit more critical of that. So I would say you probably chose the right thing choosing quality and content over imagery and figuring out how to put your hair up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was definitely the right move creatively. It was just one of those of like, whoa, could I have not been in retail a long time ago? Huh.
I know I worked as a bartender for 10 years till I got burnt out and I ended up quitting all pissed off. But the best thing I fucking ever did was quitting my job. I mean, it's a lot harder to make a living and to like get business in, but as for like my day to day and how I feel and what I'm actually doing, I'm so much happier. Yeah, man. I just quit my job because I've been quote unquote essential these last few months. And nice work. Man, it's just awful being out there with the public and they don't give a fuck about you. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm out. And I waited until I had something lined up. But yeah, starting next week, I'm just going to be working from home and not endangering myself for the sake of stupid bullshit, you know. Yeah, good. More power to you, Feels man. Good. Yeah. I know I'm happy I get to work for home right now, but right now I just need the work to get coming in a little bit more because it's been fucking slow. Yeah. It's like people can't even get in the same room to record, you know. It's really tough. I just really hope people would be recording on their own. I mean, on anything. Send me anything. Like, I feel like it's amazing what you can kind of throw together just on, like, a home recordings and stuff. And, I mean, I don't know. I would just encourage people to do that. Record your own shit and send it and see what we can do, you know? I'm going to see how it plays out, but I recorded
scratch tracks of 2 guitars, bass, and vocals. And I emailed them to my drummer, who doesn't really have, he makes like on his own, he does like electronic shit, and he's not really set up to record like we do here. But he's going to try just like a 2-channel drum recording so we can at least have a demo of the song, so we can at least move forward and try to, you got to iron out the kinks of your arrangement and do all that.
Take advantage of the downtime to do all the pre-production that most people don't ever take the fucking time to do.
Well, see, that's the beauty of having the studio here in my house is that
Same with me. We pre-produce the shit out of everything.
Oh, it's the greatest songwriting tool I've ever had. I mean, I didn't even think of it that way when I was starting, and oh my God, it's the greatest. I mean, when we did our
pre-production, I send everybody home with rough recordings of everything, so they go home and sit on it before they can even come in to actually track. It's
shit,
so
I mean,
good.
We record our practices when we've got new songs. I mean, it's just like, yeah, here you go. It's like,
I track almost every practice.
Yeah.
Just because we can be like, hey, what was that fucking rad thing we played last week? Oh, let's go look.
Yeah, it's great, man. And I remember the DFS record we made last summer, we did all of the tracking, and it was like 18 songs or something like that. We did all of the tracking in basically 24 hours. It was on like a Thursday and a Friday, and all I had to do after that was lead vocals, because we had done so many months of pre-production and changing the tubes and the mics and the drum heads and getting everything exactly how we wanted it at rehearsals and making these demos, that it was like, okay, let's get down to it. Let's play the fucking songs well. And like, that was the only thing we had to worry about, because everything else was already out of my mind from pre-production. I mean, it was beautiful. Like, we could never have done that anywhere else, setting all your shit up from the ground up again.
That's what I try to encourage all my bands that come into the studio is like, hey, why don't you guys come in like the week before? Use my cabinets. Bring your snare, bring your cymbals, like just play in my practice space. I'll track it, and I'll send you home with rough mixes of everything you're going to record, so you guys can have 2 weeks to hear what you sound like in a room playing together.
I love that.
And that has been everyone, as soon as I've done that, because not only then do I show them what I'm capable of on just recording mics live, dirty, open in a room, you know what I mean? But it also shows them what they're capable of, and then everyone's like, okay, this is what it's going to end up sounding like. This is where we're getting at. It just makes the tracking 10 times better. It's 10 times smoother, and everyone knows what's expected of them, what the turnarounds in the songs are. So every band that comes in is like, give me a practice day. Just come in for an hour. Just play your set. Just play those songs. Let's just see what's happening.
And if they're using mostly your gear, you can have the room already mic'd up when they show up. It's great.
And I do have the most part, and I will use their gear if they want it, but I figure it's like we might as well just like get it in the room and see what it sounds like. You know what I mean? I had like it was like a contract that I would send out as we were booking the time, because I had so many bands bring in their like disgusting ass, garage sale drum kit that hadn't been reheaded and tuned in 5 years, or they'd bring in this random ass thrift store amp and just all this shit. And so I got to a point where I would send out a thing that said, here's the list of gear. In this room, we use DW, we use Ampeg, we use Mesa Boogie. Like, if you want to bring, snares, cymbals, pedals, whatever, like, sure. But, like, for the love of God, just leave your crap at home. Yeah. I know. I mean, I'll give bands a chance. Be like, well, if you have something that you really like the sound of and you really want it on there, bring it. We can do it. But usually,
it just weeds out anyone who doesn't have the legit stuff.
Yeah.
Because then
people will bring in a piece of shit and it will sound cool. And I'll be like, okay, I get why you wanted this piece of shit in here because it's unique. But usually bands will come in and they'll hear how their shit sounds, and be like, do you want to try my shit? And then they'll plug in and be like, so you can use that if you want. Yeah. And then they usually will, unless they have something really unique.
Yeah, totally.
So.
Yeah, there's always those exceptions. I just found that it was like, when I'm taking any old band off the street, I was like, I need a buffer here, because wow.
Especially with the fucking drum kit. Usually that's the fucking worst, man.
Yeah. So what was your first recording setup as you start to go out onto your own? I mean, what are you using at that point?
Well, I trained on Pro Tools mainly, so I started on Pro Tools. I think it was like Pro Tools 7. I honestly can't remember. I'm so bad with the model numbers. But it was a Digio 2 interface, so an 8-channel interface with Pro Tools like 7, I think. And then it was an Octapre. It was a Focusrite Octapre, yeah. Because I have the new Focusrite Octapre, but I think it was the old one.
Yeah.
No, it was a Behringer 8-channel interface that I had connected via light pipe. So it was Pro Tools on an old Mac Pro Tower with the Digio 2 8-channel interface with a light pipe connection connected to a Behringer 8-channel pre. And then I had Yamaha board that I would use the pre's on with the Digio 2 pre's or for the Behringer pre, so I didn't have to use those.
Dude, I still have one of those little light pipe Behringer 8-channel expansions. I almost never need it. Like, I got rid of my actual board years ago because it was like, I'm recording myself most of the time. Like, I don't ever usually need more than 7 drum mics and a scratch track, you know. But still in my rack, it's sitting here. It doesn't get a lot of play, but it's there.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I don't know. I like to stack pre's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like having choices of gain. So I've always had a board to just use the pre's on, to either use like the pre's on the interface or pre's on the board, or you know, I just like having kind of cascading stacked gain stages, you know. You can kind of get a little different bit of texture or clarity out of certain things. So
I would just like to, because I rarely get the chance to geek out about tone a little bit, but I mean, what is your amp rig like? I mean, what is your go-to for punk rock guitar?
Well, I got orange amp controls there, so that'll tell you that I'm an orange amp guy.
These are tattoos he's showing me.
Orange amp Rocker Verb 50 run through a sonic maximizer, and that's been the best rig I've ever had. I have a Marshall 1960s TV reissue cabinet.
Is that the tall one?
The taller one's like an inch or two taller.
Yeah, dude. Those have the greenbacks in them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those sound great.
That's the best guitar rig I've ever had. That's why I got this tattooed on my knuckles, because after I got that, I was like, oh my God, this is... And I've always been on the search for like the best amp, because I've never been happy. I am forever an unsatisfied amp customer until I bought that Rocker Verb 50. Yeah. And so, yeah, I love that damn thing. I also have a Fender Tone Master, which I'll use coupled in recordings. Drew from Faith of Saints will use that when we play live, because he never has bought his own amp, because I don't know why. But so when lately, what my secret weapon has been, I'll track with the orange on the Marshall 1950 TV reissue, and then I'll have the Fender Tone Master on just the standard Marshall. But what I'll do is I'll have my guitar run into a splitter, and then have it split to those, and I have 2 close mics up on one cab and 2 close mics up on the other cab. Oh wait, no, I did that for one guitar, but what I actually ended up doing, I did 1 close mic up on each, and then 1 distance mic on each, so that it's 2 cabs going at the same time, but it's split, so you get the timing differential of the speakers moving. Yeah. But then you have the close up for the attack, but then you also get the room tone and the bleed, and that's been like the best thing ever. Yeah, for the longest time, because I've had a dual rec that's my go-to, and then I have a VHT. It's sort of like an 800, a JCM 800 style. It's got the KT88s, single channel. I'll use that on my opposite channel. When I wasn't touring with the band, I got rid of all my 412s. And so I had them sitting on top of a Mesa 212 and a VHT 212. So whichever head I was using, I was actually miking both cabs to get different flavors in the mix. And it was really cool. Like right now I'm running just a Mesa 412 and a JCM 900 412. I think that dates after the last record. But yeah, I mean, I love having the combinations of flavors where
the VHT naturally has these more like upper mids, and the Mesa's just got this oomph in the bottom end. And, I love mixing and matching those things and the way they complement each other.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, when I was doing that dual amp setup, like, you can hear, you'll hit one note and like the attack will come from this cabinet, right? But then it'll resonate more from this one.
Yeah.
Just because of like the differences in the tubes or the cabinets. But then capturing that in the same room, it just makes there be physical movement be frequency dependent instead of you panning something.
Yes.
And that's been like my favorite thing lately is doing the two cabs in the same room with one away, one close, because you just get the timing differential and then you get the frequencies to kind of ebb and flow between the cabinets, and you can actually feel it move in the stereo field and in the mix. That's amazing. Like, to have it do it musically. I don't have to pan something to complement it. The frequencies are just doing that because of the way the cabinets are interacting together.
And one thing that I do too is I'm sure you have your go-to mics that you like on cabinets. I'll typically use just like a 57 or an i5 Audix, and then I'll use the Sennheiser 609 because it's got that real brittle top-end attack thing going on. The combination of those is really nice, especially kind of the darker i5 tone
Nice.
to offset it. But the times that I've sent it to somebody else to mix, I'm always like, the guitar tracks, like I'm giving them to you separately, but like they are meant to be together. Because like if you were just to solo it, I remember a friend of mine being like, "Those guitar track doesn't sound that great." I was like, "Oh no, you have to put them on together." And he was like, "Oh shit!" Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, they're like intentionally carving out totally different frequency responses, so I can
it's
get
like
the
almost
widest."
Like if you listen to them separately, it's not what you want at all. But
not at all.
together, it's just my Lord.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've learned just from recording myself is that, I mean, it depends. If you are trying to do like a live recording and you need to utilize all of your channels very specifically and use fewer mics, then like, yes, I'm going to try to just get the most complete sound from each instrument or whatever. But like a lot of times when I'm recording myself, I just know that I want all these little flavors on my palette that I can mix together later,
Yeah, exactly.
What is your favorite mics for guitar recording and bass recording?
Right now, my favorite combination is I have the Royer 121 and 57. I have those close up right in front, usually on separate speakers. Same cabinet, but separate speakers, but in the same position, so they're getting the same time arrival.
Yeah.
Because what I'll usually do is then I'll blend those together. I'll record them onto one track together. Mm-hmm. So I'm not having to work with separate tracks. It'll just be the close mic track.
That's smart.
So my main tone is that Royer 121 ribbon mic with the 57, and then I always have a far away mic to kind of get a little more of the room tone. I find you get more of the low end. And my favorite mic right now I use for vocals, and I use for that is the Mojave, the MA300.
I haven't used that one.
I've been doing that for my far away mic on guitars. That's like my workhorse mic. I put that on fucking everything. So It's like my far away mic. It's like the mic always listening from a distance, or it's on vocals. So yeah, Royer 121, 57 with the Mojave MA300 distance would probably be my guitar setup. So
you mentioned the Royer. I just actually got my first ribbon mic. I've used the Cascade Fathead on a couple sessions before, just working with a friend. Recently, I came up on this SE Electronics X1R. I haven't had any time with all this essential shit, but I finally, for this demo I was telling you about that we did the other day, I got to put it up on my cabs, and my God, they're just so full, and like it just sounds like you're in the fucking room. So many mics, like we were saying, they have their own colors and whatever.
What mic is this again? Say it again.
It's an X1R to SE Electronics.
X1R. I'll have to look it up. I'm not familiar with it, so
it's right behind me, right here, actually. But
I'll check it out later.
Yeah, so far I've used it on vocals. I've used it on acoustic. I've used it on my Mesa cab the other day, and it was like, oh, man, this thing really is kind of a jack of all trades.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. So I'm looking to get some new mics and stuff. I'm kind of like at a standstill with kind of gear right now, but I don't know. I've been like wanting to buy a handful of new mics. I definitely want to get SM7 and the Sennheiser, the 421. I think those are my next purchases. So.
Dude, I love the way the 421s sound on toms, man. That's one that I've always wanted to get.
Yeah, we used it on toms on the Sorry Not Sorry recording. I don't have one, but Johnny brought his over, and then Johnny also brought over his SM7 when we recorded, and we put that on snare. And oh my God, yeah, the 421 on the toms, best, and then that SM7 on snare top, holy shit. That's pretty impressive, actually.
I haven't tried that, actually. I got the SM7 a few years back for the podcast, actually, and then I ended up using it exclusively for my DFS vocals because I found that it's so flat that when I would track like the same song on a condenser versus on that, there's so much harshness that it removes just by giving you such a natural recording. And so I've used that on all my screaming stuff.
I really want the SM7 because I love my Mojave MA300, but it's so bright. It's all this like top end color and like the nasalness of it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm really a harsh singer, so it works well resonating through my nasal cavity. But the SM7's all that mid and low range. So I really want the SM7 for the mid low attack, and then I want the Mojave MA300 for the shimmer on top.
I used to do that with my vocals where I would double mic it. You know, I had one that was like when I started, it was a really dark, it was like an AKG C3000 or something. It was kind of a cheap condenser. It was a really dark mic. So unless I mixed it with a brighter one, it kind of just, it worked great on dude I rap with a lot, Evil. He has a lot of sibilance in his voice. And so I'll put him on the SM7 now.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
it's got
and then
that nice pop filter on it, just ready for it.
Yeah. And me, like, I have darker consonants. I think it was just from having vocal lessons like so many years back that I mute a lot of things as I'm doing it. And so I used a blue mic for a lot of years because it had such a top end presence, you know.
Nice.
But I can't put him on it. And so I give him the SM7. It's nice just to have a little bit of variety. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the shit that I'm working on that sounds great is not going to sound good when the next artist comes in the room. It's good to be able to adapt.
Yeah, know what you're capable of, you know, all your colors you can choose from for the most part. So,
yeah. So, before we wrap this up, you were telling me about a lot of projects that you've got coming out. So, Ground Score, just to gloss over, you're not in the band anymore, but you guys did a lot of work together.
It was the most successful group I've ever been in my entire life. It went from like nothing to just punk rock bowling in like 2 years.
That's awesome.
It was great. It was a project where all four of us were super active in it.
Yeah.
And I did half the songwriting, and Kevin did the other half of the songwriting, and Jay, our bass player, would write like a song here and there. But yeah, that was a great project. I'm happy that we did so much. Ultimately, like, I could not work happily with my bass player in that project.
Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up just having differences that we couldn't come to terms with, and I had to leave. And because he was kind of our booking agent and was kind of like managing the band, you know, it wasn't really my place to like throw it's him or I just had to exit because it was his project that he was moving on with, even though I was recording all the music, practicing at my house, and writing most of the songs. It just didn't work out, and so I felt that the best way for it to go would be me to leave. But also they had an issue where they weren't able to even be Ground Score anymore because we had another Ground Score in Washington, D.C. contesting our name and our releases. And so ultimately we would have had to change our name and everything. And then that's when I was having some issues with our bass player, and I decided that it was in best interest for me to step out and let them do what they need to do.
Do you guys
I wish
have
them the best, but I just don't know what's going to happen. So.
Do you guys have music out under that name, or did you have to pull it?
We have a record out and a split out under Ground Score. We were supposed to be releasing music as Ground Score PDX after our first issue, but the members of my band didn't, I guess, set that up quick enough. And so the guy basically took our Bandcamp away from us.
Oh, wow.
And started selling his music on it. we hadn't designated ourselves as Ground Score PDX prominently enough.
Jesus.
So therefore, we couldn't have any version of Ground Score. And he asked us nicely to be PDX, but we didn't do that actively enough. So then he decided to just not allow us to be Ground Score.
That sucks.
It just sucks. So that kind of complicated things on top of it. And I'm so sad that ended, but
Well, it sounds like the stars aligned and that was kind of just time to go.
Yeah, it's really sad. I wish them the best, but I don't know if they're going to be able to go on as Ground Score, if they will change the name, or if they're going to negotiate or do the lawsuit thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't be a part of that stuff, especially after the things that happened with me and the bass player. I just didn't feel very appreciated for all the hard work I put into it. So,
I mean, that was your newest project that I saw. So
yeah.
So fill me in real quick on these other couple bands that you're still playing in.
Faith the Saints I'm still in, which I've been in for like 13, 14 years. But like I said, we've been on like hiatus because my bass player's life has changed. But we're still about to release, like 5 records basically.
Yeah.
And we may play a couple shows once the world opens up, but pretty much we're just releasing all this music that we haven't released for years, and that's that. And then I'm in another band with Johnny from Second Best, and then my drummer from Faith the Saints called Sorry Not Sorry. And that's probably the most active project I have right now.
Yeah.
That record's almost out, and it's, I don't know, in my opinion, it's like the best thing I've recorded and some of the best music I've personally written.
That's awesome.
And I'm very happy on how that came out, and that's about to be released. I have like 2 little changes I want to make to the mix, and then it's done. So that's really different. It's like post-hardcore, experimental punk rock kind of stuff.
Okay.
We draw from a lot of different influences. We're down-tuned. Sometimes we're in drop C sharp. So I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. So that's kind of my new band project. And then I recently started doing this thing called Fucked by Association, which is just all my solo stuff, my acoustic stuff. I'm just gonna try to release an acoustic record and make a record kind of on my own, mostly acoustic based, but with some other instruments and stuff. So yeah, so mainly I'm trying to move into Sorry Not Sorry and Fucked by Association, and then Faith the Saints are about to release a bunch of stuff, but the chance of a show is very few and far between. So
more just airing out the vault on that one.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what that is. So I'm sure we'd love to do a show with it, but it might not be more than 1 or 2 shows, and then that's probably done.
Yeah. Well, where can people hit you up for production work, man?
Hit me up at Irican Productions at Gmail. You can find me on Facebook under Irican Productions, or Instagram or any of that stuff. So for music stuff, Sorry Not Sorry or Fucked by Association is what's active right now. So
awesome, man. Well, I enjoyed talking with you, catching up. This was fun. And,
yeah, dude, it was so great to catch up with you. It's been so long. I'm glad to see you're doing it and everything. It's awesome that we're both kind of still in the game,
I know, man. It was really such a trip reconnecting at random and being like, oh, we're kind of doing the same shit. That's pretty cool. All right, that is our show. Hope you guys are enjoying the new season of the Take 92 podcast. I'm going to try to keep it up now. I'm going to be working from home, so I should be able to bang out some more consistent interviews for you guys after we've taken a healthy break to recharge. I'm going to leave you with a track that's a rough cut from the new Sorry Not Sorry album. This is an unmastered one, straight from Irican Productions, where you can get your band recorded. This song is called Alternative Facts.